Today I will seek government approval to draft legislation to ban trade with the illegally occupied territories.
Ireland could become the first European Union member country to ban the import of Israeli goods produced in the occupied Palestinian territories, such as the West Bank and East Jerusalem. This news came just days after EU Commissioner on Sports talked about banning Israel from sports competitions. Now, both these developments are hugely important, and I'll explain how. But let's first talk about Ireland's plan to impose a ban on Israeli goods from the occupied Palestinian territories. This is what Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris had to say about the plans.
Today I will seek government approval to draft legislation to ban trade with the illegally occupied territories. In many ways, this is a small measure, but it is imperative on all countries to do all that we can to maximise the pressure and conditions to bring about a ceasefire, because the scale of humanitarian disaster is almost unimaginable, is certainly unconscionable, and certainly is a war crime.
The bill is expected to go through the committee stage this summer and could become law within the year. Once passed, this law would make it a criminal offense to import goods from the occupied Palestinian territories. Even though, in terms of total volume, it's insignificant compared to the total Israeli export to Ireland, the ban on exports from the occupied territories is seen as symbolic, as trade is limited to physical products such as dates, oranges, olives, and some timber. Just so you know, Ireland was the second biggest buyer of Israeli products in 2024, worth $3 billion. The country largely imports electronic integrated circuits and micro assemblies. These components are widely used in Ireland's pharmaceutical, medical device, and tech manufacturing sectors. In comparison, the proposed ban would hurt Israel by just $800,000. That's why I said the decision was a symbolic value, given that Ireland would become the first EU country to send a message to the world about Israel's illegal occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The USA remains the biggest buyer of Israeli goods, worth $17 billion, with goods being supplied to the US, including diamonds, high tech electronics, including integrated circuits, and telecommunications equipment, as well as chemical products. With $2.8 billion worth imports, China is the third largest importer of Israeli goods, with products including optical equipment, electronic components, and chemical products. Unless countries like Ireland, China, the Netherlands, India, Germany, and Hong Kong impose a collective ban on Israeli products, Ireland's symbolic gesture is not going to hurt the Israeli economy as a whole. But this development is important nonetheless, and it came just after Glenn Micallef, European Union Sports Commissioner, hinted that Israel should be expelled from sporting competitions for committing a genocide in Gaza. In response to a question by Politico on whether Israel should face sporting sanctions over the Gaza war, Micallef said, and I quote, "When it comes to sports, I think there should be no space in sporting events for those who do not share our values. Sport is a tool that we use to promote peace, through which we promote human rights." End quote. Though he also made it clear that sports movement was autonomous and they make their own decisions, he added, and I quote, "But we have a duty and we have a responsibility to speak about these issues and to make our feelings known." End quote. I've been shouting from the rooftop for so many months, asking for Israel to be banned from all sporting events, because we did exactly the same to countries like South Africa, Russia, for far lesser crimes. But we have been turning a blind eye to Israel for obvious reasons. That's why no one took it seriously. So I'm glad that a body like European Union is now considering at least that option, even though it took the EU Sports Commissioner more than 19 months to present this idea publicly. But to be fair to Micallef, he had recently expressed his disgust over the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza by Israeli terrorists. This is what he has said.
The situation in Gaza is a catastrophe. The aid that Israel has allowed in is merely a drop in the ocean. For over 80 days, Israel has blocked the entry of humanitarian supplies to Gaza. That means 80 days of no food, no medicine, or other vital supplies have entered the Gaza Strip. Malnutrition has already claimed the lives of over 100 children, and 70,000 more are at risk. Curable diseases and infections cannot be treated. Aid must flow immediately, without obstruction, and at scale to save lives. And it is now imperative for Israel to unblock humanitarian aid.
After the UK, France, and Canada, even Germany is now distancing itself from Israel, as the country's chancellor recently said that Netanyahu's barbarism in Gaza could no longer be justified.
Das, was die israelische Armee jetzt im Gazastreifen macht, ich verstehe offen gestanden nicht mehr mit welchem Ziel. Die Zivilbevölkerung derart in Mitleidenschaft zu nehmen, wie das in den letzten Tagen immer mehr der Fall gewesen ist, lässt sich nicht mehr mit einem Kampf gegen den Terrorismus der Hamas begründen. Wenn Grenzen überschritten werden, wo einfach das humanitäre Völkerrecht jetzt wirklich verletzt wird, dann muss auch Deutschland, da muss auch der deutsche Bundeskanzler dazu etwas sagen.
Now, this is important. Why? Because Germany has been the second biggest backer of Israel in its genocidal campaign in Gaza after the US. So if the German Chancellor is saying this, that has quite a significance. Even though, again, his disgust has come for far too late. After more than 53,000 people have been massacred by Israel, and that's the official figure. After Israeli terrorists have completely destroyed Gaza. But nonetheless, at least he has realized that what Israel is doing cannot be justified publicly. Hope these are not just words, though, and a coordinated action will follow to at least acknowledge the ongoing Holocaust in Gaza and stop this bloodthirsty terrorist called Benjamin Netanyahu from committing more carnage. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.